while we're starting to talk, I was going to say while you're waiting, but we're going to get going, we'd like you to take out your phones. Yes, we're actually telling you to take out your phone. And we want you to log into menti.com. Once you're on www.menti.com. Okay, and the code is 79614513. Okay, so thank you everyone. We're going to be talking about the power of connection. Earl, when he did his keynote speaking, really introduced us because a lot of what we're going to talk about today is continuing what he talked about earlier in his keynote introduction. And it's about the power of connecting. And for those of us that are ECEs and working towards our ECE, this is a really important subject for us. It's a very important topic for us to gain as much information as we can. So we're hoping this helps in your day today. So I put some stickies on the tables. So Earl had talked about who inspired you. Okay. What we want you to do is write on this sticky a person that maybe inspired you, but somebody who's been your person in your life. Someone you go to when you have a hurdle in your life, when you have some good news that you want to share. Someone who you always, something good happens, you pick up the phone and tell them, or you're having a rough moment, you pick up the phone, your phone, I'm really dating myself. Pick up your phone and you call them, okay? It could be somebody in your past. It could be somebody in your present. It could be, you might have 2 or 3 people, but just pick one. Why? And put that person on your sticky. And that's for your reference. Okay? So think about why you picked that person. Okay? Earl had mentioned about inspiring you, but why that person? Think about that person and their qualities. What qualities do they have? Just yell them out.
Honesty.
Sorry?
Loyal.
Loyal. Honest. Patient. Trustworthy. Great one. Okay. Take those words, and what we want you to do is enter it on our Menti. Okay? Add to our cloud here. Just add some words. And if you watch it, the more words you enter that are similar or the same, the bigger the word gets. So right now, understanding, caring, and supportive are the bigger ones. Okay, we'll give you a few more seconds to enter some, and then we'll take a look at what we've created. Okay, so look at the words that stand out the most. Understanding, loving, honest, caring, supportive, understanding, non-judgmental, compassionate, encouraging, trustworthy. Those are all great qualities for somebody. That's a really great person, gifted person, right? And that's why you've put them on your sticky. Because when you have those life events, that's the person you go to. Okay? So, and supportive is almost the biggest word out there, right? And if you think about connection, those words really do mean connecting. When we connect with someone, those are the qualities we look for. So that person has supported you throughout all the life hurdles and that. And when we think of ECEs and connecting, those are the qualities that we look for, that we want to embed in our children and for us to be able to teach. Okay? So when you look at that person on your sticky, that's almost who you want to be like in your day-to-day connections with children, are these qualities that we had up, like the supporting, understanding, encouragement, non-judgmental. Okay? So that sticky is just for you to think of that person. But as ECEs, we strive for those qualities and connections in our day-to-day interactions. So instead of leaving it till the end, we want to thank you for everything you've done for our future and for the kids that we work with on a day-to-day basis. because it really is that your connections mean a lot. And that you might not realize how much of a connection you've made with some of these young, impressionable children. As Earl had talked about infants and toddlers, those are the impressionable ages. And we want to make sure these connections are positive. And so we thank you for doing that on a day-to-day basis.
All right, so a meaningful quote from How Does Learning Happen? Ontario's Pedagogy for the Early Years says that fostering good relationships with children and their families is the single most important priority for educators in the early years. Okay, so moving forward, we're going to share a video with all of you pertaining to correcting versus directing. Some of you may have seen this video, and if you have, it's okay. It's worth seeing more than a million times. It's so good. But it features Dr. Jean Clinton. If you're not familiar with who she is, Dr. Clinton is a child psychiatrist who is really well known in the early years community. She has a special interest in the vital role that connectedness and relationships play in early childhood development. So as we watch the video, we're hoping that you will reflect on and consider the following questions. So, what actions do I take to build relationships and connect with the children in my care daily? And number 2, what else can I do to support connecting versus directing and social efficacy in the child care center? Dr. Clinton does touch briefly on self-efficacy in the video. However, I just wanted to expand just a little bit about that. It's really referring to how we help support children in helping them recognize their abilities and believing in their own abilities. It really is about how they're learning to make positive contributions in their environments that they're in, and as well helping to motivate them to try new things. So let's watch.
So what we're learning is that social interaction, the building of the brain through relationships, is an absolutely crucial, essential part of healthy development. Relationships are nutrients for the brain. We need to think of our natural habitat as relationship. So what does that mean? How does that translate into teachers in the early years interacting with kids? Well, to me, one of the key things is that you think of relationship and connecting first. When I, visit places and think of my own parenting, I know I spend a whole lot of time correcting. And so as we look at the social brain, we realize that when kids feel connected and trusting of their teachers, you have fewer behavior problems. They will follow along. If you spent a whole lot more time saying, wow, that was a very nice thing you just did there with little Johnny. I really appreciate your help there. Rather than, oh, don't hit that boy one more time. If you focus on the connection, the relationship, it's almost as if you've made the deposits in the emotional bank, that when you do need to make correction, even little ones as little as 3, they can tell the difference between someone who's made a connection with them and respond differently than someone who's just coming in and bossing them around. So teachers, I think, really need to be focusing on what's the relational balance that I have with the kids that I'm looking after. And if you find that it's correcting and redirecting, now is the time to say, whoa, these kids are going to thrive better if we start first with connection as our primary drive. There is a challenge that we face as we think about this relationship revolution, because really that's what we want. We want a revolution that people are recognizing that when you have social and emotional maturity and literacy, you thrive. But you know, the thing that we keep coming up against is the legacy, the history of behaviorism. And so behaviorism has things like if you spare the rod, then you spoil the child. That means you have to discipline and show who's boss. Well, in fact, that has been shown not to be that effective. That when you are approaching the child from a punitive punishment, what they're learning is that big people are mean, that I have no control over my environment. When I like something, if somebody else bigger than me wants it, I lose. So punishment really gives kids a negative perception, as well takes completely away their sense of what we call efficacy. That is, I can make a difference in my environment. The research really now much more focuses on how can we help kids develop internal discipline so that they are making decisions in a nurturing environment that are the right things to do. Not because the teacher's going to be mad at me, but because they are the right thing to do. There's studies that show if you reward kids being generous, their generosity goes down. Why? Because they then start looking around to see who's watching me do this, rather than the spontaneous. If you say, oh, you're so smart, or that's the best painting I've ever seen, what happens? The kids don't try as hard. Even the kids with natural ability in painting and what have you, they do less. What motivates us and what motivates kids is not so much the stickers and the punishment and the timeouts, but the relational, the sense of competency, the sense of I can make a difference and I did that and I can help somebody feel better. They change the brain.
As we think about the video and what we heard, Dr. Jean Clinton said it best when she said that relationships and building connections with children is crucial in classroom settings for healthy brain development. So, you know, we recognize that children learn better in environments that foster cognitive development, but as well, they learn in environments that foster that emotional development. With, you know, cognitive development, it really is obvious. It's in plain sight. You know, our classrooms are filled with toys and activities that are used to foster that development. But with emotional development, it's a little bit different. It's not as kind of clear-cut. It's about how we respond to the children. And currently, there really is an explosion of knowledge and evidence that tells us that healthy development really can't happen, and it does not happen without those positive interactions and relationships with the people in the children's lives, within the family as well as outside of it. And that's kind of where we fall in. We're outside of it. So why connection? You know, connections and love builds healthy brains. It really boils down to how we actually engage with children. So whether that looks like being on the floor with them at their level, or commenting on the activities that they are involved or engaged with during their play, that really encourages them to look at the things that they're doing, being able to explore new areas in the classroom, being able to go outside of what they already know or kind of out of their comfort zone. And, you know, we help them to feel secure enough to be able to do those things. When children are and feel connected and we have that trusting relationship with them, we're likely to see fewer challenging moments in the classroom. And that happens when us as educators, again, I'm repeating myself, but commenting on those positive behaviors rather than focusing on what the child is doing wrong. I don't want to say wrong, but unsafe or undesirable behaviors that we see. So that could simply sound like, Sally, you're playing really well with Johnny, and it was a great choice to share those blocks with him. It's something simple, and those positive affirmations really help to build and nurture that self-efficacy.
We can connect, but we also need to teach, right? And so what you want to do is identify them right from the beginning. Oh, you're sad, you're crying, and then work on that. Because infant toddlers, they will carry that into preschoolers, just like you said, and it helps, we're teaching them about emotions.
And also teaching them that those emotions are okay.
Yes.
And I'm here to hold space for you to have that emotion.
Yeah.
And I'm not rushing through it.
That's right. Yeah, and play to learn, when we look at it, really does have the basis, right? And it is all about feeling that you belong and engagement and all those things. And that's what connecting is getting to know and get down to the kid's level. We connect better when you're at the same level as the child. So sitting down, playing with them, acknowledging their feelings, acknowledging what they're doing, rather than walking around a room going, oh, I like the way you're playing with those blocks, Denise, right?
And if I like the way you're playing, he's napping.
Exactly. Be specific in what you're saying. So if Denise has, a toddler's climbing shelves, right? What do we always say? Get off the shelf. Get off the shelf. Get off the shelf. What is that teaching the child? If we say, Denise, you need to put your feet on the floor, that might fall and hurt you. You're more likely to have the child repeat that behavior because it's more positive than telling them what not to do. Okay? So
Exactly what I was trying to say.
So yes, so being those positive connections bring out positive behavior. Not that we like to call it behavior, but it does. Because you've connected with that child saying, I could say, well, Denise, I really recognize that you want to climb today. Let's find something safe that you can climb on. Let's go make some stairs with the big blocks. And let's do that. So that's a way of connecting. The more, right. Right. Exactly. And remember that, because we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get into about the classrooms. Because what happens is we think we're connecting. When I finished my ECE, and probably if Denise fell, and I said, oh, Denise, you fell, wiped off her knee, you're okay, let's find something else to do. That's not connecting. I thought it was connecting, but it's not connecting. It's minimizing, and I've not dismissed her emotions, but I've kind of dismissed her emotions, and I'm telling her, you're okay, right? I'm going to give you a scenario now, just because it fits in more now with our discussion than later, is reflecting as an adult as well. So as a child, Denise was riding a bike, and the pedal fell off her bike. And I'm going to go up to her and say, oh, Denise, the pedal fell off. Oh, now I got to fix this thing. Let's put it over here, and Michelle will fix it later. Okay, you need to go find your friends over there and play with them. Or I could go up and say, oh, Denise, the pedal fell off. That must be frustrating. You must be sad now that you can't ride the bike and there's no other bikes. Can you help me bring it over here, and Michelle will fix it later? Come on, let's go see if we can find something else to do. That's connecting. I acknowledge that I identified that she might be frustrated and sad and there's no other bikes, but most of us probably, I don't want to put words in our mouth, but probably might have done the first one, right? Through years and years of having things embedded at us on how to work with kids. Put that in adult terms. Denise gets a brand new car on the weekend. She's in the Tim Hortons lineup. She gets a fender bender. She starts crying. And the person seeing this accident happen, so I get out and here's Denise crying, and I could say, why are you crying? There's no blood. Why are you crying? Right? It's okay. You can get your car fixed. I don't understand why you're crying. That's just crazy. You're a crazy lady, right? Or I could go up and say, oh my gosh, you're so upset. It's okay. Things are going to be all right. I'm here to help you and support you through this. Wait till the police come. I'll be here. That first scenario, I can guarantee that she would have gone to her person on her sticky and gone, you should have seen this crazy lady telling me that I had no right to cry because there was no blood, right?
Yeah, I probably would have.
Because that is her connection, right? So if you try to put how children are connecting into adult terms, think about that person on your sticky, right? That's who you go to. We want to be that person on your sticky to be able to connect with kids. It might seem a little different or unrational at this point. You think, oh, I don't need to really get down that. You do. Connecting is so important. Even Earl was saying that those impressionable years, we need to connect with kids. And that can look different for everybody. Okay?
You might have heard that brain science tells us that our frontal lobe, the part of our brain that does the thinking, the impulse control, makes good decisions, is logical, doesn't fully develop until our late 20s. Think about that for a minute. Emotion, impulses, big ones, the big ugly ones like sadness, anger, disappointment, frustration, that play out in really, really ugly big ways, are well developed long before the logical container for it exists. So think about a toddler. A toddler has very well developed impulses and emotions, but the front of their brain, the front part that makes all the good decisions and contains all those emotions, isn't even developed yet. So think of a young child who's playing with their favorite ball and the ball rolls onto the street. Child chases it out onto the street without even looking for cars, even though you've told him many, many times to stop and look for cars. You've told him the rules of the road. All that child's thinking about is their beloved ball. And they have trouble remembering all your rules because that would require logic. So our expectations of young children, and even older children, tweens and teens included, might be skewed because we expect them to be able to change their behavior when really, their brain development doesn't even allow it. We're asking for blood from a stone, when sometimes asking a child to change their behavior is biologically, physically impossible. Think about those times when you look at a child and think, why can't he just do what I'm saying? Well, maybe he honestly can't. Brain development, it matters.
A toddler brain and an adult brain, that they don't meet until you're actually adults. So the emotional piece and the rational piece don't talk to each other for a long time. That's why when you go, oh, I don't have to, I'm always telling Denise to get off that shelf. Why does she keep climbing that shelf? Because her rational part of her brain and her emotional part of the brain aren't connecting. Right now, she wants to climb something, and she's going to climb that shelf because her emotional side is saying, I need to climb. Right? So she's going to do it. Whether I tell her to or not, she's going to do it because that's overriding her rational piece of her brain. So kids until they're teenagers actually, well, I don't know about teenage years for rational, but...
Yeah, I was going to say 25.
Well, 24, 25. But we made it through those years because we connected, right? And that makes a difference. So that's what this video is about, is having that rational piece and your emotional piece connect. So you are telling children over and over again the same thing, and yes, they're not listening to you because their brain did not connect that information. They heard you, but they didn't connect it. Okay?
I'm lost with that.
Okay, so Dr. Jean Clinton says it's best when she discusses how relationships and building connections with children is crucial in classrooms for healthy development. So we're going to talk a bit about that in the classroom. And we talked about that, right? You got that part? Yeah. We're just catching up. And what we're talking about today is that getting away from the directing. Change is hard. A lot of us don't like change. Yeah. We don't like having to change the way we think. But it's embedded in you are some of these sayings that you grew up with in our relationships.
Yeah.
Do you want to give some examples?
Sure, yeah. So those past theories have, things like you can't leave the table until your plate is completely clean. One that I often heard growing up, that's familiar for me, is put your tears away, you don't need to cry. All of those, there's so many, don't speak until you're spoken to. I know there's some pretty harsh ones out there. But these are really the ideologies that we grew up listening to. And it can be really challenging to move away from those behavioral approaches and try out and be willing and open to try out new approaches. But with these more punitive measures, so to speak, we now luckily have new information and new research, and we're able to see children in these learning environments, and And by creating those strong relationships and commenting again in positive ways. And what we're actually doing is helping the child feel more confident within the environment that they're in. And I think Michelle kind of said it, it's hard for us to tell children what they should not be doing, especially when it comes from a place where we're really trying to keep children safe, and we're doing our best to help children learn. But sometimes we really need to look at the fact that when we're telling children what they're not supposed to be doing, opposed to reframing it to what we're doing is to do something more appropriate. What happens is it becomes more of a learning opportunity for the child when we reframe that.
It's those teaching moments.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're directing a child to what you want them to do, it's a teaching moment. Right? So we teach them what we need them to be safe, right? You need to put your feet on the floor. If that shelf falls, you will get hurt. And then eventually they will find something else, and then we have to be there to support them for that connection piece. Okay?
It's the old saying, catch them being good, right?
Yeah. And as Earl said, a lot of it is about consequence, right? Let them learn a little bit. We don't want the shelf to fall on them, obviously, but we need to teach them. And we forget that sometimes. We'll connect with them, oh, that makes you sad, right? And then we forget the rest. Toddlers learn at a very young age, right? If you teach them, that things are dangerous or hot or don't go out on the road, if you instead of telling them, get off the, I'm trying to word it, get off the road. But if I say, you need to stay on the sidewalk and then explain, you need to stop, you could get hurt with the car. That's a teaching moment after I've connected with the child. So as young as a child is, keep teaching, because they're impressionable, they're learning, and just like Earl said about their brains, they keep growing. The first 5 years are so important. We know that all young ages are important, but at one point they will understand, right? Okay, so we're going to move on, just kind of watching our time. So responsive caregiver, what is it? We hear it. What is a responsive caregiver? Yell out some words or phrases that you... Active listening? I missed...
Engagement.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Engaging.
Engagement, absolutely. Yep. Good. Engagement. So as early childhood educators, we're supposed to be responsive caregivers. And that's an approach to support a child's needs, whether it be developmentally and emotionally, right? So what we want to look at is we want them to feel that they belong, that they're secure, and that we are listening. We're being active listeners. We need to be sensitive to their feelings. We don't want to dismiss their feelings. We want to be sensitive to their feelings. Oh, you're sad, you're happy, you're this, you're that. Sometimes that doesn't come naturally to us. The activity that Earl did about compliments, one of the other girls and I were talking, giving compliments and accepting compliments isn't always easy for people, right? I don't take compliments very well at all. I can give them, but I have a hard time accepting them. And that's, pardon? Yeah. Right. And if you've been brought up with punitive measures or those comments, it's hard to accept those compliments. I wasn't, but I just don't like people looking at me or having that focus on me. So we have to learn to give those compliments. And that's a good way to start with kids, right? I love the way you built that. You worked really hard. Right? Give those compliments. I'm also connecting as I'm giving the compliments. Okay. So in that brain development, that emotional, rational piece, we need to remember that when we're doing those teaching moments, right? When you're giving it. Again, keep it simple. Don't go into a lecture to why you can't do that. If the shelf falls, the wheels come off, it breaks, then I got to get Denise to fix it, and we won't have it till next week, and we got nowhere to put our toys, right? We don't need that. Just simple, short sentences. Okay. So how does it look when we have a responsive caregiver in our environment? So we want to think of you as a tiger or a rabbit. So first thing in the morning, now you get to pick up your Mentimeter. And we would like you to type in, which one are you in the morning? Are you more of a rabbit or are you more of a Tigger? So Denise and I were Tiggers this morning because we knew we had to get here and have technical difficulties and be on our toes. All right, so we have lots of Tiggers in this group. Our last group was 50-50. It was
50.
very close.
Yeah.
This group, we have a lot of Tiggers. So as an educator, how am I going to make sure my classroom is going to meet the Tiggers' needs first thing in the morning?
Lots of activities to choose from.
Absolutely. But what do we typically do in our classrooms in the morning? Sorry, ladies, I can't hear. Right. So we set the classroom up for developmental needs, but are we actually setting up our environment for emotional needs? Okay, so here's the next one. Take a look at this outdoor environment. You have a slide, a swing, the hammock, sandbox. So on your very best day, okay, person in front of you pays for your coffee at Tim Hortons. You won the lottery. You had a great relaxing weekend, got to see a movie you've been waiting for. So where would I find you in this environment on your very best day? You're happy, you're ready to go. Where would I find you?
Tire swing.
Funny, eh?
It's funny how different. Oh, there's the...
Okay, you're only allowed 5 on the tire swing today. That's awesome. The last group, the hammock was full.
hammock
Full.
is full.
Most people were in the hammock. So this is interesting to know that 2 different classrooms, groups of people, had 2 different types of needs. Okay? There's no 2 groups that are the same. Interesting. Nobody's in the blue box. The climber, sandbox. It was just that playhouse.
But this is Playhouse. Playhouse in the box.
Oh yeah. There was that blue, looks like there was trucks and all that in there. Awesome. So 22 of you are on the tire swing. Now, think of your worst day. You did my trick, you go to McDonald's, you pay for your coffee, you're supposed to go to the second window and you keep driving through and forget your coffee. I've done that a couple times. And then I get to work, I don't have my coffee, right? And then Sandy says, okay, I have something due in an hour, you need to do this. Oh, I forgot to let the dog back in the house. Your worst day possible, okay?
Or
Where
when
would
all
I
the
find
debit
you?
machines go down and you go to the gas station and you have no gas and you're in trouble.
Now the hammock's getting full. All right. So everybody wants to be on the hammock this time, on your worst possible day. So think about when you go home on the end of that worst possible day. What do you do typically? Some people might like to go for a jog. I like to get a cup of tea and sit down and do nothing. Right? So think about yourself in those moments where you have your best and your worst day. And think of the kids in that environment. Now we think of the inside environment. Okay, so now we're in the classroom and you have your worst possible day. Where would I find you? Oh, sorry, best day. Best day. Where would I find you? There's creative, craft, music, sensory, floor toys, building area, book area. Wow, we got some music people in this group.
You can tell it's a room of ECEs
Yep.
when you have this many on the craft table.
Yeah, I know. That craft table gets busy. Yeah, that's where you'd find me too. Okay, and that's your best day that you like that. Okay, it's interesting that there's only a couple of you in the book area. The last group was quite high. Okay, now your worst day. Day 2, you go through McDonald's and you do the same thing, right? You try to find something to wear, you have nothing to wear because nothing's clean. You spill your coffee, you frost on your windows, you get to work and you're late. Okay. Yeah, look at the book area now. I can't tell you how different this is from the last group.
It's very different.
Very different. But that goes to show you every classroom is different. The group of children you have is different, and that's where we need to be detectives. So, going back to being a responsive caregiver and our environment, think of a house. So when we build a house, we have a foundation. I'm just waiting for the chitter-chatter so everybody can hear us. Thanks. So when we look at our foundation, when we build a house, we need a strong foundation. We need it strong enough to hold up the walls, hold up the roof, be able to last for many years, get through some bad weather. We need our house to be strong. What happens if our foundation has a crack, it shifts, and it's weak? What happens to our house? It falls, right? Or it needs to be fixed, and we need to adjust it. Think of children as that foundation. As early child educators, if we build a strong, connecting, strong emotional children that feel secure, that trust people, that have good connections, they will be able to support themselves and get through those hurdles in life. So when something's thrown at them, they're going to have good emotional stability, they're going to have good problem-solving skills, and they're going to be able to get through that situation. If children don't have a strong emotional foundation, they'll have a crack, so they might need supports. They might fall apart, which can result in actually having alcoholism, mental health issues, drug abuse, and that's just an analogy of how it looks, right? We need to build those strong foundations. So if you look at our chart here, what it talks about is our feelings and our emotions. So anything we've learned up to now in our life is our past is embedded in us. Whatever our parents said to us, friends said to us, our experiences, our trauma, whatever we experience is embedded in us. That results in our behavior. Our feelings about those situations and emotions also come out in behavior, whether it's a positive behavior or a negative behavior, it comes out. So when we talked about a strong foundation, if we have strong foundations, we're going to be able to get through those hurdles in life, and that behavior inappropriate behavior, which we don't like that term, will decrease, right? So we're building those strong emotional children by connecting. And connecting means getting down to them, identifying their feelings, identifying their emotions, learning opportunities, being able to connect with them, truly connect. When I walk into a classroom, I love when I see people sitting on the floor reading books, not the iPad, but actually reading books, singing with kids. I'm connecting with the kids. I know that using technology is a great way to keep kids busy, but it's hard to connect to technology. It doesn't give me that emotional feedback, right? And kids need that, and we need that. We need that connection. So getting on the floor, identifying the kids, taking the time to get to know the kids, be that detective. When those Tiggers come into your classroom, take a look. Am I able to meet their emotional needs, these Tiggers? Otherwise, I'm going to be telling walking feet, get off the shelf, stop throwing the blocks, stop bugging Denise, keep your hands to yourself. When you have those moments, take a look at the children and yourself and what we're providing them. If we provide these emotional, strong connections and activities, the children will grow up having those strong connections and be able to move forward. But we need to have those. You want to add anything to that? Did I sum it up? Okay.
So another meaningful quote from How Does Learning Happen? The best educators, first and foremost, use a warm, responsive, and inclusive approach, building positive relationships with children.
Okay, so this video, I know some of you have seen this. Has anyone seen the video, the rice experiment? Have. I know, because I showed you. Okay? This is a really interesting video. It doesn't have sound, but I'm going to talk you through it. If you get an opportunity, please look it up. It's really good to watch. It's called The Rice Experiment. So this gentleman is proving a point by how powerful our words are. So he cooks rice for 20 minutes. I just want to get to this point. He takes 3 containers, sealed containers, and he divides the cooked rice into those 3 sealed containers. Oh, it's not moving. And in 90 days, he labels one as love, the second one is hate, and the third one is ignore. And for 90 days, every day, he goes up and talks to them. On the love one, he tells it how much he loves it, he appreciates it, he respects it, he connects with it, he spends some time with it. The next jar that says ignore, he totally ignores. The third jar says hate. You're awful. You're terrible. Why do you do these things? You never listen to me. Why are you acting that way? And he talks hateful, degrading words to it. After 90 days, he goes to them and he opens them up. I'm just going to fast forward to those. And this is what he finds. After 90 days, and every day he talked to them this way. And it's quite interesting. And I actually had a student when I was teaching night school who did it. And he emailed me after the 90 days and said, it really did work. So then you look at the 3 jars. He looks at the love. You could actually eat it. Not that I would, but you could actually eat it. It was still looking white. There was no mold on it, no other black. It was very, we'll say, connected. You could eat it. There was nothing wrong with it. If you look at the hate one, it was covered in mold. It was disgusting. It had fungus on it. It was terrible. The ignore had a little bit of mold and fungus and gross things on it. Not as much as the hate. This just goes to show you the power of our words. Our words really impact on the children and our connections that we make. So when you get a chance, watch this video. It's really good. And it's very impactful. Okay. So that kind of wraps up where we are. Did our note? We're going to do some questions and answers quickly. I just want to look at the time. We got a few minutes. So we're going to ask you some questions on what you've learned, and then we'll wrap up with just a couple of sayings at the end. So choose one person at your table and come up with a name for your group. And that person, we're going to use their phone.
A group name for your table.
Okay, here it comes. Here's your first question. When building relationships with children, we need to direct them, praise them, connect with them. Okay, here comes the results. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Ooh, the awesome 4, Team Awesome. Team Awesome, you're in the lead. Okay, here's your second question. My thoughts, feelings, actions, belief impact how I connect with others during my day. Five, 4, 3. Awesome. True. Oh, Team Awesome still in the lead. Oh, no. Okay. Question 3. This might be multiple choice, so make sure you pay attention. When educators are connected and having a trusting relationship with children, the result is, can you read the bottom?
Can't read it? Okay, so
Decreased behavior, chaotic transition, healthy brain development, showing favoritism, smooth transitions. Nobody can hear me. Awesome. All of the above that you guys answered. Okay? That's right. So when you have good connections, hands on top. When you have good connections, in summary, decreases chaos in the room, right? Decreases behaviors. You have strong connections, okay? And honestly, the behaviors will go from here to here. Connect, right? That's what we want you to walk away with today. Fostering good with children and their families is the single most important priority for educators in the early years programs. You go, girl.
who has the quickest fingers?
Who has the best fine motor skills?
That's right, yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So, how did you guys feel connecting with each other today after 3 years of a pandemic? 2 thumbs up. It's great, eh? It's great to be able to connect with people that we haven't connected with for so long and sit and chat, and it's great to see people are smiling. We want you to take this away with you. So just a couple other things. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Who won? The Awesome Four. Who was that? Figures. Oh, Team Awesome. It was Team Awesome. And there's only 3 of them. There's only 3 of them. Okay, so we want you to walk away. Wow, I love the chatter. But we just want you to walk away with a couple of things today. So, just remember, keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive because your behavior becomes your habits. Keep your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny. Okay? Okay. So just remember that person you put on your sticky, okay, is very important to you, and hopefully you will build some of those skills so you're somebody else's person. Okay?
Thank you.
And we're done.